We got some TikToks to react to. We got Matt from Rental Cash Flow. Let's get to it.
Your financial real life doesn't start until you're making at least $500,000 a year. $500,000 basically means you can pick your neighborhood, you can pick your vehicles, and you can travel several times throughout the year. The problem is that if you have a W-2, you got a job, you're making $150,000 to $200,000 a year, you still know what it feels like to be so strapped. At $500,000, you're not strapped anymore. You got the house, you got the car, and you have leftover money. And every year that means you have money to invest while you aren't sacrificing your future and your dreams, because you can have a nice lifestyle today and you can invest. For people that don't make $500,000 a year, I always urge them to reevaluate your career and figure out, how do I get something going on the side that can make me $500,000 a year? Now, if you get to $1 million a year, that means that you sure as heck can live in a gated community. It means that you can have multiple vehicles, you can have a private driver, you literally could have access to a chopper, a private plane, and you have hundreds of thousands of dollars left over for investing. This is big time because now you're actually living the dream, but guess what? You have money to build the dream even bigger.
He's just delusional.
I'm really familiar with this guy, and I really wish he'd start putting a clown nose and a wig on, because that's what he is. He is a complete clown, and I love how he has to throw in access to a chopper, a private plane, and all of this. And that is not what we're about. If that's the things that you're into, please by all means follow this guy. But there's more to life than what this guy preaches.
Yeah, as of right now, I can only afford one vehicle because I don't make $500,000 a year. I can't afford two yet, like he says.
There is some interesting information in here, which is he's right. At that $150,000 mark, people think that they're going to be financially free a lot of the times.
It doesn't go like it.
It doesn't go as far
as it used to. No.
Yeah, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm making big money, six figures, and then you realize, oh my gosh, I'm just as strapped.
I forgot what he said because he followed that up with a bunch of buffoonery afterwards.
But you and I both feel like, it's about saving. It's about savings habits, and it's about living below your means. And it's not living up to the money you make as you make more. Sure, when you're making $500,000, it is easy then to have multiple cars and go on vacations and all of those things. But you can also do that when you're making $150,000. You don't have to go somehow create 7 clones of yourself to drive DoorDash every evening to make $500,000 on the side, like he says.
I mean, he says, if you're not making $500,000 a year, you're still sacrificing your dreams and, not living a comfortable life. And I would say that just depends on what your aspirations are and where you're comfortable at. Maybe to somebody who's making millions of dollars a year, they see a figure like that and they think that that's, where their comfort level would start. But for other people, especially those of us in the Midwest, you can live pretty comfortably making a couple $100,000 a year.
You are living the dream life. One of your videos that first inspired me is you showing you living the dream life and the sacrifices you made to reach to where you are. And it's not about making the $500,000. You have financial freedom through real estate, not because you have a chopper and all of these things.
When I started real estate investing, our goal was to have the cash flow from our rental properties bring in more than my salary was bringing in for us. And at that point, that maybe I could leave my job. Now we've been able to do significantly better than that. Just because of how much more you can grow as you build. It's the reverse debt snowball effect, right? Mm-hmm. And it's been wonderful, and we're very blessed. But I was able to leave my job at 29 years old, not making $500,000 a year, and maybe I'll be doing that in the next few years. I don't know what the future will bring, but I live a comfortable, modest life. We're doing well enough for ourselves. I don't need to have a budget for myself.
Well, you made it about priorities, and your priorities are your family.
Exactly.
And the lifestyle that you have in your time with your wife and your children. And that's what I would encourage people. Before you start saying, I need access to a chopper or a private plane, what are your priorities? What are your goals for your family? How much time are you spending with your kids? Scotty's told me all kinds of stories. He's been around a lot of rich people throughout his whole life. Terrible relationships with their kids. So before you get into all this added guru type stuff that he's promoting, check your priorities and make sure that you have time for what's most important.
I have literally lived the life that he's talking about through other people, not myself. I grew up with some ultra wealthy folks, and I can tell you that, Matt, the way you live, Clint, the way you live with your families, with financial freedom through real estate is so much better than this crap he's selling.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people that follow me, and I know you guys have very similar viewpoints, but my joy and fulfillment in life is not coming through real estate investing. It's not coming through a certain dollar amount. It's coming through, the joy that I have in Christ, and then also the joy that I have in having my time to do with what I want to and spend it where I want to live on a beach with my family in, not a fancy condo. We're just, living modestly and we're happy, but we have our time.
You're one of the richest people in the world, though.
So
that makes you one of the richest people in the world.
That's the dirty little secret of Airbnbs. Airbnbs have two problems that all the people that talk about how much money they make with them don't bring up. They have three problems. Problem number one, there's a ton of hassle, a lot of details, a lot of work involved in getting the people in, getting them out, getting them cleaned, probably 25x a normal rental, because you'll have multiple renters in a single month. Problem number two with Airbnbs is you have a lot of extra maintenance. People tear the crap out of your property. Nobody talks about that. You're constantly buying carpet. You're constantly buying paint and drywall repair because they do not take it. I don't care how big a deposit you get or how much screening you do. It's not their house. And so you're going to have a high level of repairs and maintenance, which is part of that hassle factor. The third thing that nobody's talking about is several areas are now passing zoning prohibiting it.
This is really interesting because these are three things that Clint and I talk about with risks with Airbnbs, but we actually have an Airbnb specialist here today who feels like he's overcome a lot of this.
Yeah, it's interesting that Dave talks about short-term rentals when, at least to my understanding, he doesn't actually own any. So it'd be like me giving dental advice without being a dentist. You can look up stuff online, but without the experience, it's hard to really know, right? For one, on the first point, I think he is right, where you do have, at least to some extent, you've got more people coming in and out, so it is more work. But at the same time, what he's leaving out is there's a lot of systems that you can use. We use like a property management software called Hospitable that essentially automates like our guest communications, our cleaner communications. It synchronizes our calendar as well. So it essentially takes things that where, like he mentioned, could take you up to 25 times longer, but brings it back down to, maybe only taking 2 to 3 hours a week to accomplish.
I agree with all 3 points. And I kind of am a Dave Ramsey guy. I know there's a lot of people that aren't. He's super conservative, which I'm really boring also, just like Dave is. But I believe that there's a difference between certain areas. Like, for example, I've got a short-term Airbnb rental in Panama City Beach, Florida. And people are coming and going all the time. And, hey, they're there for a party. Let's face it, the families are there going in and out to the beach. The doors are open in and out to the balcony. The maintenance is a lot there. We're constantly fixing it up. However, I know of other areas where there are Airbnbs where it's more of just a person coming to stay, for a few days on a business trip, or it's someone just kind of passing through town where it's not that beach style atmosphere. It's not the party atmosphere of, say, like a downtown Nashville. So I think that you have to be cautious that, yes, what he said is true, but it's only applicable to certain areas and other areas are different.
See, I would say though, it definitely does depend on the area, right? But it also depends on the area with a long-term rental as well. I mean, the quality of the property. I mean, if you've got an A+ property or A property in a nice neighborhood, typically you're going to get a higher quality tenant. Where if you're renting out, the property more in the crummier part of town with a cheap rent, you're going to get that quality of a tenant. Where, our Airbnbs are in residential neighborhoods and they're nicer properties as well. So, I would argue on his second point where he says you're replacing carpet. I've never had to replace carpet. I've never had to, fix drywall. I mean, in the flip side, I've got a cleaner going in there 7, 8, 9, 10 times a month, and they're looking at everything. They're walking through the property. They're doing a clean on the property and everything, where you would not have that with a long-term tenant as well. So, it comes down to management, property location.
What about point 3, zoning? Do you worry about zoning at all where you get banned?
So, I would say some Airbnb investors only look at areas that they already have good regulations in place, because you're less likely to get blindsided by things. We're in some locations that are less occupied, less vacation destinations, so there's less Airbnbs in general. So we're on the safer side. Plus, we stay involved with what's going on. We've created relationships with other investors, so we're communicating with the city as well. We're making sure that we're abiding by their rules. And typically, if you're doing that and you're operating in a professional capacity, you're not allowing those parties. You're not allowing all this trash and all these cars and all this other stuff, then people aren't going to bother you or be upset about it. So
I think you can eliminate a lot of that risk when you're purchasing an Airbnb. Ask yourself, if you had to pivot, would it make a good long-term rental?
Exactly.
There are some areas where, like downtown Nashville, you would have to pay such an inflated price to get the cash flow for the house that if you had to turn it into a long-term rental, you'd be in big trouble. But I think that there's a lot of areas where it works as an Airbnb, and if something were to happen, you can pivot to turn it into a long-term rental. That would be my advice to someone that would be buying it.
It comes down to the cash flow. For me, that's what the most important part of it is. Do I spend 2 to 3 times more per week on a short-term rental than a long-term rental? Yes. Am I dealing with vomit in the hot tub or, maybe a little repair job on furniture here and there? Yes. But I'm also making 4 to 6 times more cash flow on a short-term rental than I am on a long-term rental. So for me personally, it's worth it.
That was his nickname in high school, Vomit in the Hot Tub.
This client told me that they Airbnb'd their home for 2 days and their guests left all of these products in the bathroom. She also told me that she has a weekly cleaner and she just needed the place to get freshened up. I almost believed her until I saw all of the buildup around her apartment. Sometimes I think people are a little ashamed of their living conditions and they try to blame it on other things. Please do not be ashamed of your living conditions. Seek the help that you need and deserve so that you can be on your journey to living a cleaner life. Okay guys, bear with me. So right here you can see that I had moved the refrigerator to clean behind it. And at the beginning you can see all of the trash that I picked up. Yes, that was underneath the refrigerator. There was also a lot of very tricky grease in this kitchen, and you can see that I had to use a razor to scrape it off because no chemical was able to penetrate through it. Unfortunately, there was just too much grease in all of the grout that I was not able to complete the entire kitchen grout. But I did communicate this to my client and I let her know that this was not a typical deep cleaning, so I could only dedicate so much time to it. And here you can see the beautiful after results. Okay, now what you're looking at here is grease on the high wall above the stove. This grease was so thick that you can see that it didn't even bud. I had to use my specialized chemicals for it. And here's a snapshot of all of the hair that I picked up around the apartment. And here's just another shot showing you guys how dirty the entire place was all around. I doubt this place gets weekly cleaning. And honestly, I'm not judging. My goal is always to give people a fresh new start. I can only imagine what it feels like living in a home like this. So I can only imagine what it can do for someone when they have a fresh new home to start over in. I honestly wish I could do this a lot more frequently than I am able to. But we can tackle one home at a time. If only people would call for help. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and follow.
I live in a house full of estrogen, so the vanities and the amount of hair all over the place is kind of true in my household. But yeah, it's amazing how people live. Like
I'm cold-hearted, man. I judge it. I'm cold-hearted. That's the one thing you can do to live comfortably, even when you don't have money, is to just keep the things that you have in good condition and clean. And you know me, I'm pretty OCD with keeping my cars clean. And yeah, I'm out there. I keep my stuff spotless, but I work so hard to pay for a car. I worked so hard to pay for my house, our beautiful offices. I like to keep that stuff clean, and I don't know. I'm cold-hearted. I don't feel bad. It's the one thing people can do, whether you have money or not.
It's interesting looking at this from a property owner, landlord, whatever you want to call it, perspective, because something that we write into our lease agreement is that the property must be returned in the same condition minus normal wear and tear, upon leaving. So if you've been there for 3 years, it's like, yeah, I'm going to expect nail holes in the walls, normal wear and tear in the carpet, stuff like that too. But like, if we get a property back and it looks like that, it did not look like that when we when we moved them into the property, we're going to be taking some money out of the deposit to get it clean again. And that upsets people, but it's like, you can't live like that and leave it like that and expect it to, not get charged for that.
I think people would be surprised at how common it is for people to live like that and to trash places, even in high-end rentals. We focus on higher-end, long-term investment properties, and I'm always surprised that this is still common, even at those high price points. In some ways, it doesn't matter what the rent is. There's just a section of people that just live hard and don't clean up.
Yep.
I had a high-end rental not too long ago. They turned the living room into a motorcycle garage.
Nice.
For them to fix up their motorcycles.
Nice.
So yeah, I've seen it all.
Thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about real estate, we've combined our 50 plus years of real estate investing experience and put it all into one course. Click the link below if you want to learn how to have financial freedom through real estate.